it kicked me out of the YouTube, and so just okay.
All right.
Yeah, we're good.
Let's go. Approval of agenda. Can I have a motion there? How about you, Jeff? Oh,
So moved.
okay. Okay. All in favor? We got Carla moving, Jeff seconding. All in favor? Done. Adoption of the minutes. Motion. I'll make that motion. Anybody second?
Second.
Got a bunch of seconds, so all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. No public comments. It looks like the gallery is empty.
Gallery is empty.
And so I guess it's up to Daniel next.
Okay. I have a presentation for you. Okay. So this is a referral from council for a bylaw that council is considering. Are you seeing my screen okay in the PowerPoint?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Excellent. All right. So this came out of a grant called the Housing Accelerator Fund. That's a federally regulated grant and provides funding to municipalities across Canada in return for implementing a series of action plans aimed to reduce barriers to housing in local governments. So one of our approved action plan items was to review existing parking standards in the land use bylaw with a view to reducing parking requirements for affordable housing multifamily developments. So we brought a report to council in the fall that did that. So looked at our existing parking standards. So this is what they are currently in our land use bylaw. So typically, if you're in a rural zone, so our 1, 2, or 3, and generally those are the larger lots on Bowen, we require 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit. And if you're in a settlement zone, so SR2 is probably our most common residential zone, and you see that in things like in the Loop or in Miller's Landing, Seven Hills, Tunstall Bay, Blue Water, etc., many areas of the island, we require 1 parking space per dwelling unit. And same in village zones is 1 parking space per dwelling unit. We do have then some different standards in different comprehensive development zones. So area 1 of CD19 requires half a space per dwelling unit. CD19 requires 1 per dwelling unit plus visitor parking. And then we have a parking standard for supportive housing developments that requires 1 parking space per 2 bedrooms, or in all zones, 1 per 2 bedrooms plus 1 per employee. So they're a little bit different. And then we looked at variances that have been issued by council to reduce required parking standards. So in the last 10 years, council's issued 4 of these. The first 2 are for projects that have been built, and the second 2 are projects that are either underway in Snug Cove House or not yet started construction in the case of Birch. But you can see here sort of council has reduced parking for projects that have some element of affordable housing in them. So reduce them. So for example, the apartment building at 510 Bowen Island Trunk Road, the bylaw would have required 18 parking spaces and was reduced by variance to 8 parking spaces. Or in the case of the Birch project behind the health center, the bylaw would require 24 parking spaces and council through variance reduced it to 10, so down to about 0.4 spaces per unit. So what you'll see in the bylaw that council received and gave first reading to is staff proposed that we include a definition in the land use bylaw for affordable housing that would be non-market dwelling units that may only be owned or rented under the terms of housing covenants registered on title in favor of the Bowen Island municipality. So that's a definition taken straight from our OCP. And it's sort of broad. It's not in itself trying to define what the affordable housing definition is, but it's saying we have a housing agreement, a covenant on title in favor of the Bowen Island municipality. So something we've agreed to take and monitor as an affordable housing unit. And so for those units, we would propose a parking standard of 0.5 parking spaces per dwelling unit. So the same standard is currently in one of our CD zones. but lower than we otherwise permit in zones. And I'll say that this would only relate to, like, if there's a project that has a mix of market and non-market units, this would only relate to those non-market units that are in the development. So for example, the apartment building at 510 Bonella Trunk Road has, I believe it's 27 units, and I think 3 or 4 of them, we hold a housing agreement that would provide them as affordable. So only those units in the building would have the reduced parking requirement. Just where we are in the process. So this was identified as an action item in the Housing Accelerator Fund. We presented the bylaw for first reading. We're currently doing referrals to the Islands Trust and to committees. You're the last committee to see this, so Sarah is quite used to my presentation by this point. And then we'll come back to council. For the bylaw would have to receive second and third reading, and then back to council again to adopt the bylaw. So at this meeting, I'm looking for any comments or recommendations from this committee, and I'll stop sharing now.
So, Jeff and McKaylee, do you have any comments?
From a climate action perspective, it seems to have a net benefit with lower reliance on personal vehicles. So I don't think there's any adverse considerations on that front. Trying to think about other environmental dimensions that if there's reduced parking requirement, is there a larger building footprint that might have unintended consequences? I'm just thinking out loud. I'm not too sure there is anything obvious to me at the present. But
the only thing that I would think of is some sort of transportation to offset the need for a vehicle, especially if the housing is removed from the cove. So if like some sort of apartment building or something went up, outside of that, I'm thinking to the Cowan Point development that's going to be going through and that sort of thing. So, again, pushing to make sure that transit is providing increased services to both geographic regions and frequency.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, McKaylee. That's what's come up with some of our other committees is, yeah, what about development outside the cove that's not on a bus route? Should the bylaw be nuanced to make sure that we are, that it's not waiving parking requirements or not reducing parking requirements outside? I know one of our other committees was talking about, well, this would lower the minimum, but people are still able to provide. It doesn't at any rate impose a maximum parking standard. So people are still able to provide additional parking. And yeah, you're right. Like at this stage, with the current transit, if somebody was proposing an apartment building by Seymour Bay, it's hard to see how it would function with less than, 1 parking space per unit, even though the bylaw would allow lower. We'd be saying, well, sort of what's the plan then for people who live in those units? Is the plan that people can, commute to the cove regularly without vehicles? It's challenging without the bus route, but
I've got some comments. One concern I have with this model is reducing the number of spaces available. Will that mean that some people with a car that can't be parked there will be using public parking? Like I'm thinking in Snug Cove of using a parking space for overnight parking and for maybe storing a vehicle there for weeks on end. And isn't that just transferring the cost of owning a car from the owner to the taxpayers of Bowen? And so I've got a suggestion that if that becomes an issue of making areas where that's an issue, making it a paid for you have to pay for long-term parking on public roadsides and parking areas, so that it's transferred again to the owner of the car, not not to the people, the rest of the island. So a
Sure.
suggestion.
And I know, Will, just to speak to that, I know in our strategic plan, council strategic plan, there's an item, consider pay parking in Snug Cove, is actually in our strategic plan at this point, and that would kind of speak to that same thing of saying, that's a consideration.
Yeah.
I know when this came to council, that was some of the topic was sort of general parking in Snug Cove, and yeah, and it's true. It's like if you're thinking about what's the demand for parking in Snug Cove, they are different considerations. Like what's the demand for free parking in Snug Cove versus what's the demand for pay parking in Snug Cove? It's a different amount.
Yeah. But I guess the point I'd make is I'd hate to see people taking advantage of the municipality and the municipality basically having more pressure for parking because there's not enough in a residential area. So,
Right.
So that's the other thing I was going to suggest is for future parking in developments, is there going to be a requirement to have at least a percentage of type 1 or type 2 charging stations for parking there? Because we're in a transition time from gas-powered vehicles to electric vehicles, and which is a good thing from the environment and climate action point of view. And so having those less expensive charging options built into new developments would encourage that.
Mm-hmm. There's not currently a requirement to do that. I'm trying to think if it's something we actually put in the Snug Cove design guidelines for stuff in Snug Cove, but I don't think it's in there either.
Further to Will's point about the transferring of the responsibility onto the municipality for people parking long-term in municipal spots or cove spots, local businesses may be affected as well. And thinking of the Village Drive parking lot that's supposed to be the overflow for the apartments, and I know the Ready as well, probably the Kate's Corner could be impacted.
Yeah. Well, actually, Will, I'll say, so sorry, I was looking up our design guidelines, and it does say in our new design guidelines that come to council on Monday, provide at least one electrical vehicle charging space per 5 spots. So if there's like an apartment building within the Snug Cove design area, we would be seeking to see electrical vehicle charging spaces.
Great. So
Do you want me to pull up? I have a drafted.
excellent.
Okay. Just give me a moment. Okay, can you see?
Now we can.
Yes.
Yeah, there, I'll just make it a bit bigger for you as well.
Thanks.
Actually, you know what? I'm gonna do it this way. How's that?
Just a change. We're not the transportation
Oh my
advisory.
goodness. No, we are not. That's. I'll fill that in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any comments from McKaylee and Jeff and Carla?
I think I would probably include kind of my earlier statements for the ones kind of narrowly focused on, our committee mandate is something to the effect of the parking standards supports the goals, and I forget what we call them, goals or principles of the climate action policy. Yeah, supports the goals of the climate action policy in reduction of personal vehicle use, I guess. Other aspects of that, I think, are a little bit aside from our committee a bit. I don't know whether it's necessary to say that. Don't think we've identified any other environmental ramifications.
The other point you made, Jeff, that may be relevant is will the reduction of parking spaces increase a building envelope that will have greater environmental impact than a parking space?
Yeah,
So
they're
like
both.
the zoning would still have like if the zoning has a maximum lot coverage, that wouldn't change. So it wouldn't
Okay.
increase the like maximum you're allowed. Now, whether it would say, well, on the edge case, now you can build closer to the maximum in the zone, maybe.
Kaylee, you have any thoughts on that?
I think providing or working towards providing an alternate transportation does meet the environmental and climate action as well. So looking at or working towards providing the increase in the bus system.
Yeah, and I noticed too in your report, Daniel, there's a quote from I think the OCP about encouraging ride sharing option to a car sharing option too.
Yeah.
Is that,
That looks good to me. Comments from others?
Yeah, that could include maybe other infrastructure as well too, with multi-use pathways, like, I don't know, bicycle lanes or something like that. I mean, could be, yeah, walkable and bikeable roads.
And in the case of the Cowan Point development, it could also be there's some talk about a water taxi that links the Seymour Bay to the Cove and then also to downtown. It'd be good to have that as an electric.
Yeah.
and car sharing, walkable paths, walkable. And
Bike friendly, I don't know, paths or roads, yeah, something to that effect.
is there any others?
Pretty good there.
Yeah.
So I think, are we saying we support?
Yep.
Yeah. Support.
Yep. I'm just wondering if Carla has extra input. You
Yes.
have a broader experience with this stuff.
Thanks, Will. I have had chances to comment on this before, and Yeah, not really. I mean, I agree with you that supports the goals of the climate action strategy. And I don't know, I guess it helps us move forward with affordable housing. So I can't see a really good reason to not support it. So
There's
So-
always the question of enforcement. And so when we're talking about people parking in alternate locations, because parking's not available, is there going to be some sort of enforcement for that? I mean, does bylaw currently enforce? I mean, a little bit, I guess.
yeah, I would say like bylaws had some trouble with maintaining a full staff complement. But when they have had staff, they do go out and enforce every day in the Cove. So I think most of the parking in the Cove is only 2 or 3 hour parking. So people were being ticketed at least in the past couple of months, and are starting to listen to those rules a little bit more, I think. There are a lot of places that are still long-term kind of parking, and I think there are issues with it already, especially with the building on Trunk Road. But my understanding though is with that building, I thought that people were allowed to park in the overflow lot because it's the same owners. So I'm not sure how much of an issue it is currently and how much of more of an issue it would become if there were further developments in the Cove, but.
Thank you, Carla.
All right, time for a motion?
Is this last point, I didn't really go anywhere with that. Do you want this? Like, I feel like it should be worded maybe a little differently.
Kaylee?
No, I don't feel like it's a concern at the moment. It could be down the road, but it's sort of out of the reach of what we're covering here.
Okay, thank you. So now you can see the whole thing.
Anybody want to make the motion?
I'll
Yep.
move that.
I'll second that.
Yep.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Right?
Passed unanimously. All right. Let's go back to the agenda.
Awesome. Well, thanks, everyone.
Okay. Thanks,
Okay,
Daniel.
thanks, Daniel.
Thank you, Daniel. See you tomorrow.
Okay, business arising from the minutes, Grafton Lake Management Plan. That's Carla.
Thank you, Will. And thank you all for coming to the workshop last week. Was that only last week or the week before? I can't even remember now. So I did write up some notes from the workshop and included those in the agenda. I wasn't going to share a screen or anything, but if I can, if you would like me to. So I think it was quite great attendance, which is great, but I actually expected quite a smaller group. So I thought we were going to kind of write some stuff down, and I hope that I captured everything that everyone said as best I could with the notes, and with the AI notes helped as well. So what I think that I heard is that the holistic watershed management plan is the preferred option. But that, a phase plan could work. One thing that I followed up on since then was the suggestion with the UBC Bright internships. I had already been looking at the Pacific Institute for Climate Solutions internships. And so both of those I considered maybe trying to get an intern to do like a scoping study and maybe like a hazard risk analysis because that was a main suggestion from the workshop as well. But with the PICS internship, I think I had a really strong idea for a different application. So I've gone with that, which I will update you on during my update. And then with the Bright internship, I think that I did talk with some of the grant organizers, and I don't think that it's very likely that we would get an intern for a project like that. It's still possible and something that we could explore. But regardless of the conversation about what we're gonna do moving forward, what I really wanted to just determine was how much money we're gonna budget. Because that's the conversation that's happening now. We're going to strategic planning soon. We're getting our budget together for next year. And so that's kind of a decision that that we need to make. So I was hoping that we could get a recommendation to council on an amount to include in the budget for the plan. And so I think that I spoke with Patrick as well after the workshop, and we kind of went over some of the notes. And we had talked also about the about doing a watershed management plan previously and applied for that grant funding that was from the Watershed Security Fund. That was for $50,000. We thought that the whole project would probably be about $100,000 expenditure. I am going to apply for that funding again. There's another round of funding the applications are due December 11th, and we should know by like March or so if we get that funding. I'm not very confident that we'll get it. So what I think that we as staff have kind of our collective opinion is that we should just go ahead and budget the $100,000 for the entire project, rather than, a phase plan might work, but we kind of thought, let's just go for it, and do it all in one, and that we could work a little bit more on the terms of reference with our committees, but that we should go ahead with including that in the budget. So this is definitely open for discussion, and we have a recommendation drafted if everybody's happy with that, or open to hearing your thoughts. So.
Kaylee, you're the water lady.
I'm glad that we're going to be looking at the holistic approach first and doing sort of a top-down approach to it. I'm not sure what else you're hoping for from me.
Oh, just Jeff.
But yeah, thanks for the update. And the notes are good. Thank you for that. Reminded about what we talked about there. It's excellent. It's a long process ahead still, I guess, eh? Like, what needs to be done right now in order to protect Grafton Lake and the surrounding lands? Is it possible that we know that, because we talked about what some of the most urgent threats could be in the short term. Like, is there a mechanism or a way of maybe having like a provisional management plan, like based on the top 10, the most urgent issues? What that could be maintaining the water level, as an example. I'm just pulling something out, make sure that there's no infringement on wetlands. One dry year and a big drawdown could be devastating to the wetland areas, and wildlife. That's just one example. Another one could be, well, I don't know, other things that might degrade water quality or infringe upon the integrity of riparian areas, as an example, or something like that. So what's your sense there on what maybe needs to be done, right away, even if they don't end up being the full suite of measures later, or they get refined?
You're asking me specifically? Yeah.
Okay, I'm asking the group.
The committee? I'm
Sure.
curious. I want to give everyone else a chance to respond too.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I think that that's possible. I think that there are things that we're doing provisionally to, try to protect as well. Like the the utilities crew, with the lack of a specific management plan, like they are always trying to maintain a water level that is kind of matches up with the season. They try not to draw down very much at a time, and then they always maintain a certain flow going out into the stream. That's actually specifically for downstream water users, not for the environment, but works well for salmon as well. You know, in terms of development around the lake, that might be a concern, but I think we talked a little bit about that as well in terms of residential development, and that each development that's occurring is within the WASP, the watershed, the development permit area for the watershed. And sorry, I'm bad with acronyms. Sometimes it just doesn't roll off the tongue, right? And so that they would all be getting environmental assessments for each residential development individually. Cumulative impacts are obviously not going to be assessed in that. But then if we consider, you know, just the park, I don't think we're going to do very much. Well, no, that's not true, actually. Like, we don't plan on doing a whole ton of development for the park itself, except though the parking is coming back to council. So that's, you know, a decision that's going to be made soon. And then I also have plans to install a pit toilet for Grafton Lake.
Yep.
And that's kind of been in the works for years at this point, right? So those are two management decisions that will be happening very soon. Probably before this management plan is even gonna get off the ground. So
Good. Okay. Yeah, thanks for filling that in. That's excellent. Yeah.
The comment I have is I'm pleased to see this going forward. I think the sooner the better that a management plan for this watershed is in place, because it's really important, both for human water use, and it's the central watershed for the ecology of the island. So it's really nice to see this initiative going forward. So well done.
great.
Would you like me to bring up
Please.
what you drafted, Carla, or sorry, is there more discussion first?
Not for me, I don't think.
I think we're ready.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just going to push it down, make it really big. Then we can add some whereas if we need to as well, Carla, at the start.
Short and sweet for me. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and you're comfortable with that number. And I know you did, Carla, describe how you came up with that, but that just seems to be sufficient.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. It's
Hard to know, yeah.
it's hard to know, and hard to know, especially because if we haven't really delved into what the terms of reference are, you know, maybe we don't know what's included. And you know, one thing since we came up with that number is that when I went over all of the different plans that we have, that it's apparent to me that maybe as part of the request for proposal, or as part of the terms of reference, there would definitely be a literature review at the beginning, and that maybe some of that information can be incorporated, and maybe there aren't quite as many things that need to be studied, you know, at length, if you will. And that, so some of that information might be, you know, we may be able to use that. And I think that, yeah, I think it's going to take a little bit of work to figure out exactly what needs to be included. So that number, yeah, it could be low, it could be high. I'm just kind of rambling now, I feel like at this point, but
Fair Yep, I'm glad we touched on it, but that's good now, yep.
Okay,
I do think it's good, you know, we should be able to at least touch on all of those aspects. I know that I listed them somewhere, at least in the PowerPoint that I had sent around. And then, so if we look at all of those different aspects that we think might need to be included in a plan, we can see what information we already have and look and know and look at like the risks and the hazards and try to delve deeper into the areas that we know we need more information, I guess.
Mhm.
okay. I think we're ready for the motion. So I'll propose the motion. Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Kaylee, all in favor?
Aye.
Carried. All right, and now we have one more item here, and that's Carla on updates.
Thank you again, Will. So I alluded to the fact that I applied for some grant funding from the Pacific Institute for Climate Solutions. And so that's for an intern for an update to our climate action strategy. I was thinking it's kind of been on my list for a long time to get back into the climate action strategy, and especially to go over some of our quick wins, which were supposed to be completed within 1 to 3 years. The strategy was adopted in 2020, so we're starting to get past that 1 to 3 year point. So I've applied for an intern. I'm hoping that they, would be at work over the summer next year if we get the funding, and then they would review that plan, the SEEP, and maybe some regional plans, and maybe just give it a bit of a refresh. Maybe insert some fresh new ideas and try and give us a little bit more of a adaptation kind of parts to the plan. And so that's kind of exciting. Hopefully we get that. And we would want to have lots of involvement from the committee. So hopefully have some time for that. I wanted to tell you also that I've been invited to participate in a Pacific North Shore and Sunshine Coast Regional Climate Collaborative Project. I don't have a whole lot to say about it. The kickoff meeting is next week, but it's basically like all the municipalities in this region, and they would be working on coastal resilience. It would be the focus, and advancing key climate adaptation actions or initiatives. So that's kind of exciting. And a couple of other small updates. We finished the bridges around the golf course. That's more of a Parks and Trails update, but I just wanted to tell you anyways, because it's really exciting and it's been taking up a lot of my time over the last several months. So that trail is just reopened basically today. So that's one thing. And the biosphere, we've been working with the people from the Katsum Howe Sound biosphere region to amp up some communications around that. We've got a website or a web page in the works on our website. And then we're working on some potentially some interpretive signage for the dock, just to get the word out and remind people that they are in a biosphere region. So that's exciting. And last but not least, the Squamish beach names have been received for Crayola / Blue Water and Cape Roger Curtis / Pebble Beach. So we're presenting those. I'm a member of the Squamish Nation is coming to present those names with me to the December 9th council meeting, if anyone is interested. And that's about it, I think.
All right. Thanks, Carla. You've been busy.
Very good.
And so what's left on the agenda, information items for us to read at our leisure. and question period, where again, the gallery seems to be massively empty. And so next meeting to be announced, and so we're adjourned. Oh, okay.
I
We-
wanted to follow up on the tree protection bylaw, and apologies for missing that meeting. But I wanted to know where that was and what was going to happen with it.
You, Carla.
I don't recall where we left off on that, McKaylee. I'm sorry. I do remember having a quick conversation at the last committee meeting about tree protection bylaws. But I don't know that we made any recommendations to council to do any further work on that. It's something that we can definitely put on the next agenda.
I think that's a great idea.
Mhm.
Anything more? Okay, it's time to jump into the adjournment bandwagon, and everybody can go have supper.
Okay.
And thanks,
All
Sarah,
right.
for organizing this. Good to see you, Carla, and McKaylee and Jeff. Always good to see you.
Okay. Likewise. Thank you for a good meeting.
Okay,
Thanks
bye,
so
everyone.
much.
Okay.
Short and sweet.
Yeah.